This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey, White Plains Week, the City News Roundup show with Jim Benerofe on my left, the anchor, the Dean of Journalism in the city of White Plains, and, of course, the anchor for all seasons, Peter Katz. And, Jim, the headlines, please.
And here are the headlines for the week of November the 3rd, 2017. Two-term White Plains councilwoman Pauline Oliva dies at 90 years of age. White Plains and Westchester head into pivotal election Tuesday. State Senator George Latimer pays his tardy parking tickets. Westchester County sales tax receipts through first 9 months up 3.4%. Windfall means county does not need to lease the airport. White Plains sales tax down 3.9% in 3 months. Milagros Lacuna and Mayor Tom Roach head to election on Tuesday. Roach confident, Lacuna rallies, campaigns through email blasts. The Continuum apartments at 55 Bank Street to open in mid-November. We'll have another chilling episode of Trump the President with Peter Katz. 9 organizations submit expressions of interest in developing the city-owned property on the present Metro-North Plaza. White Plains Women's Club hosts the Richmond Community Services Gala. Autumn at its height this weekend.
Thank you, Jim. And we'll go to the Rolo Newsreel March of Time. And of course, it was Halloween this week, a very spooky week in White Plains. And that is the ghost who, oddly enough, on Halloween night wasn't there. But he was out haunting.
There were not many ghosts and goblins in our neighborhood.
Yes, we had 25, actually.
We had no trick-or-treaters.
Yeah. We had at least, and I say at least, 100 trick-or-treaters.
I guess
Wow.
they all went to Benerofe's neighborhood.
They know where the most expensive candy is, you know. Exactly. And but of course it's elections coming up this week, November the 7th.
Yeah, we're recording the show on Friday. The
yeah.
election is this coming Tuesday.
Yes.
If you see this show after the election, then you know how it turned out, right?
Absolutely. But on the other hand, the Astorino and Latimer are going at it, hammer and tongue, and Mr. Latimer actually paid his parking tickets that he had not paid this week.
This was a big issue that Astorino made, over $14,000 in unpaid parking tickets by Latimer. So now that issue has been taken care of.
Right, and it's good to see that. And now there was a rally. He held a rally, and he's really hitting Astorino hard on corruption.
The Democrats have been having, their campaign rallies, the Get Out the Vote rallies, just about every day, actually, featuring Latimer and other candidates, such as Tim Idoni, who's running for re-election.
Mr. Astorino has been concentrating solely on Mr. Latimer's unpaid taxes, unpaid parking tickets, and
It's
in a
been negative.
really negative.
It's been
and
negative on both sides.
A one-trick pony. Actually.
But you know, if the Republican Astorino campaign has been having get out the vote rallies, I wasn't notified about it, so I could go out and cover at least one of them. But I did take a look at one of Latimer's rallies, during which U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer endorsed him.
On October 29th at the Theodore Young Community Center in Greenburgh, U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer hosted a Get Out the Vote rally in support of State Senator George Latimer, who is running against incumbent Rob Astorino for county executive.
You cannot, when you don't agree with someone, just call them a name. I've told Donald Trump, he can praise me, he can trash me. It's not going to affect me. I'm sticking to my values. And so this election has many purposes, but one. It's one of the largest elections that America will face on Tuesday in terms of population. This county has close to 1 million people. It's a county that has everything. Every economic level, racial, religious, sexual orientation, you name it. It's a diverse county. And the eyes of America are on Westchester County. And seeing if people are going to come out and stand up for America, whatever their party or ideology. And the best way to send a message to Donald Trump that he can't continue to go on like this is elect George Latimer rather than a Trump supporter to the county executive. And it will matter. Everyone's looking at the tea leaves. They're going to say, are Americans so fed up and so disillusioned they're going to stay home? Well, let me tell you something. We can't stay home. We have an obligation to stand up not only for what each of us believes in, and it's not all the same, even in this room, but to stand up for American values, which are being debased on a regular, daily basis by tweeting or otherwise. I tweeted back to the president, or I said on the floor of the Senate, actually, it's time for the president to stop tweeting and start leading. George Latimer will lead, not tweet.
We're going to have to figure out how do we stop congratulating ourselves because we did 750 or 850 units of housing and solved the HUD thing, which is a shame that became a policy. And we got to figure out how we got to do 2,000 more units of affordable housing. How are we going to handle when this conservative Republican Congress cuts aid to mass transit? How are we going to run a B-line bus service that has to serve poor people, get them to their place of work, get them to their school, get them to their medical appointments, because we believe in mass transit, and we believe in housing, and we believe in jobs, and we don't believe that you leave people behind.
That's strong. That's strong. That's the strongest I've seen.
Strong stuff, but the fact is that as of now, as of this morning when we're recording this, it's neck and neck. Mm-hmm. Internal polling shows that Latimer is 1% ahead, but that's within the margin of error of the polls. Keep in mind that the last time there was a county executive election, Noam Branson, the Democratic candidate, the mayor of New Rochelle, lost to Astorino by about 12 points. Mm-hmm. So to have this neck and neck shows that something is going on here. Mm-hmm. Now, this morning, Jim, when we were talking before the show, you came up with a figure about Trump popularity here in Westchester.
Yeah, well, this was on FiOS 1. They had a bunch of statistics, and if I remember this correctly, about 67% of the population does not like Trump.
That's in Westchester.
Yeah.
Well, then Latimer should win in a walk.
If it translates into the election, we'll see.
Well,
see.
the one trick pony message that the Astorino campaign has been delivering against Latimer, I don't understand. If they didn't feel it was working, why they wouldn't change it. You know, that's the intriguing
No.
thing to me.
You know,
Bill
again,
O'Reilly, who runs Astorino's campaign, is a pretty smart fellow.
One would think that that as we're recording this show, they may be reviewing what do we do in the next few days.
Perhaps
before
there's
the
another
election.
blockbuster they're ready to launch. You never know.
Don't know. Actually, there was a blockbuster this
Yes.
morning when we came in to
Very
record
sad.
this. News which I wasn't expecting, John wasn't expecting, Jim wasn't expecting.
Right.
And that was the death of Pauline Oliva. John?
Yes, and Pauline was on the council from back in 1997, and we have a clip, a memory.
Actually, now this is through the great files of White Plains Cable, and we thank them for digging this out on such short notice. This was recorded March 3rd, 1997. It's a clip from a Common Council meeting. You'll see in this shot on the left Pauline Oliva. Next to her is Rita Malmud, and next to Rita Malmud is Bill Brown. So let's look at this clip from the Common Council meeting in 1997.
Last month, I just raised the point of I wanted to see an amended site plan for the service station, but I am satisfied with the correspondence we have gotten and the steps that have been taken to ensure that those spaces will be available for the nursing home, and should there be any change in the future, that at the time of renewal of the special permit, that will be taken up. So I'm satisfied.
And Pauline Oliva was not one during council meetings to be quiet if something bothered her. I mean, she was about as outspoken a member of the council as you could find.
And back in 2001, when the Mr. Capelli was planning the city center, she was a leader in going for to get the council to increase heights to 40 stories.
Even after she was she left the council, she was very active in community affairs and would often speak out on various issues. In fact, her family was involved in one way or another in government. Her daughter Lynn Oliva was at one time the planning commissioner for Westchester County. Has been very active and even today serves on the planning board here in White Plains. Her son Eddie Oliva actually worked for the city in the traffic department for many years.
Yeah, she graduated from White Plains High School and earned a degree in labor studies from Empire State College and worked in government service for 30 years with the New York State Department of Labor and for the Westchester County Department of Planning. She was elected to 2 terms on the White Plains City Council, serving a term as council president. She received the City of White Plains Human Rights Distinguished Service Award and the Rotary Club's Paul Harris Fellowship Award. She was inducted in the White Plains High School Hall of Fame and received the White Plains League of Women Voters Award for dedicated community involvement, a voice of reason and introspection.
A fixture in White Plains passing away, Pauline Oliva, dead at age 90. She will be missed by so many. And again, our thanks to the great guys here at and ladies here at White Plains Cable for digging out that clip of
20
Pauline
years
Oliva in
ago.
action. Yeah.
20 years ago. Now to the mayoral race in White Plains. Next, the Mayor Roach is confident, and Milagros Lacuna, his challenger, has rallied after the tremendous setback she suffered in the primary. She's been campaigning mainly by email. Here's an example of her latest missive that went out on Thursday, and where she's doing pros and cons of why she is the better choice. And now, one thing that really does matter is sales taxes. The county is doing really well. It's up 3.4% in 9 months, and they are on the way to covering the $15 million shortfall that the airport deal that Mr. Astorino is pushing was created for. It's just amazing that nobody looks at what they're actually doing.
So,
you
Jim,
know,
we're coming now into the holiday shopping season when you normally would see a flood of sales tax. Any predictions from the Benerofe crystal ball?
Actually, no. I think it'll be a good shopping season. Whether it's going to produce the kind of sales taxes we would like to produce, I don't know. It's hard
Well,
to say.
the city needs it because down 3.9% the first 3 months is not good.
And you know, we've been asking for months on this program, how is it that Westchester County sales taxes seem to be good, solid, stable, in some cases up, and White Plains isn't? What's going on here? Why hasn't anyone studied that and come up with a real answer?
The inside thinking is people are aware that they get parking tickets in White Plains, even George Latimer. Exactly. And but there's somebody was ticketed down in Washington this week, and that's part of Peter's Trump the President report.
Well, I don't know about ticketing, but
Ticketed in quotes.
He was given a ticket to board Air Force One this morning.
Yeah.
He's actually en route. President Trump is actually en route to Asia for a 12-day visit. Putnam's deputy county executive has resigned to take a position with the Trump administration in the U.S. Department of Energy. He's Bruce Walker. He'll be largely tasked with looking for ways to modernize the electric grid in the U.S. He has a lot of experience in the electrical distribution field, including working for Con Edison. Walker was confirmed by the Senate as Assistant Secretary for the Office of Electricity Delivery and Energy Reliability. Did you know that there was such an office, Jim?
In government?
No,
John, no, I didn't.
In government.
Anyway, so
Office of Reliability, they must not do anything.
So the former deputy county executive in Putnam was sworn in October 16th by Department of Energy Secretary Rick Perry. According to an ABC News Washington Post poll, 49% of the American people believe President Trump committed a crime of some sort. Now, that's even before he's been indicted for everything. 49% believe he's guilty of something. CNN reports that Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law, has turned over documents to special counsel Robert Mueller. It's reported that Mueller's investigators looking at Kushner's part in the firing of James Comey as FBI director, among other things. On Monday, indictments charging Trump's former campaign chairman Paul Manafort and Manafort's past business associate Rick Gates with money laundering and other crimes against the United States, such as tax evasion, were unsealed. Both of them were arrested. They entered not guilty pleas. The federal judge decided they were flight risks and confiscated their passports and ordered them placed under house arrest with GPS monitoring. Court documents released by special counsel Mueller on Monday also showed that George Papadopoulos, a foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign, had pleaded guilty to making false statements to the FBI and has been cooperating with the investigation since his arrest this summer. There was speculation that his cooperation has included wearing a wire or otherwise recording conversations. Although the White House tried to say that Papadopoulos was really not involved in anything for the campaign, a photo surfaced showing him in a meeting with Trump and Jeff Sessions and other campaign bigwigs. During that meeting, Papadopoulos brought up his contacts with Russians and his ability to get hold of information from the Russians, which could hurt the Clinton campaign. The infamous hacked emails. Sessions, now Attorney General, testified under oath to the Senate Judiciary Committee that he never had any contacts with Russians, and when that turned out to be false, he was allowed to change his testimony, and in a follow-up under oath appearance, he testified that he knew of no one else involved in the campaign having any contacts with Russia. What came out this week proves that Sessions was again not telling the truth. He was right there in the meeting when Papadopoulos spilled the beans.
Maybe he wasn't listening. Yeah.
A U.S. Attorney General, the highest law enforcement official in the land, caught lying under oath, now twice that we know of. Really? Are the law and order Republicans who control the Senate going to do anything to uphold the law? Sam Clovis, who is co-chairman of the Trump campaign, is no longer in line to become chief scientist of the Agriculture Department. Nomination withdrawn. He was supposed to go before the Senate for confirmation next week, but it appears his nomination wasn't pulled merely because he has no background as a scientist, has denounced science, and when working as a radio commentator made comments which some take as racist and anti-gay. Clovis, it seems, was the campaign supervisor named by Papadopoulos in his confession of guilt.
Oh my.
Yes. So, reports indicate Clovis has already secretly testified in one of Mueller's grand juries, and Clovis is now cooperating with the Mueller investigation. Carter Page, another Trump campaign advisor, tells NBC News that during the campaign, he advised Sessions of his active contacts with the Russians. Yes. A report on MSNBC this morning said Trump knew about his campaign contacts with the Russians. The Trump tax reform plan was made public on Capitol Hill yesterday. Initially, only a summary was distributed. The whole bill is said to be 1,000 pages long. House Speaker Paul Ryan wants everyone to read it, digest it, and debate it, and vote on it within 2 weeks. What we do know, based on the summary, is that it is indeed a massive tax cut for the wealthy and big corporations, and a tax increase for the middle class and the poor. Trump has appointed Jerome Powell as the next chairman of the Federal Reserve, replacing Janet Yellen, the first woman who headed the country's central bank. President Trump tweeted that the man who allegedly committed the terrorist act in Manhattan this week, in which 8 people were killed, should be sentenced to death. He also tweeted that he should be turned over to the military and locked up at Guantanamo Bay in prison in Cuba and given a military trial because the U.S. civilian judicial system is no good. A joke, as Trump said. That's the very judicial system which already has gotten a guilty plea from one of Trump's campaign people. Now, does Trump really believe that the civilian judicial system is not good enough for his campaign staff and family? Should charges be filed against them and he should see them turned over to the military for military trials if they're charged with something? A Twitter employee shut down Trump's Twitter account for 11 minutes.
What? Well, is he going to Guantanamo?
I don't know,
No.
but he's no longer employed at Twitter.
Oh my! Oh wait. Speaking of Twitter, you have more? Do you have more?
No, I can
you don't.
stop.
You
That's
can-
enough.
It's endless,
How much
folks.
do you want?
It's endless. But seriously, this business with Facebook, Twitter, and Google sending their lawyers to a congressional committee because the CEOs were busy, isn't that contempt of Congress?
Not necessarily.
And how about the fact that 160 million through Facebook were influenced and received those Russian ads?
Actually,
And they didn't know they were Russian?
Well, you can't tell. If you look at some of these Russian ads that were disseminated on Facebook and on Twitter, you can't tell
They
really
look
the source.
right out of the heart of America.
Actually, it's funny you mention that because one source for this phony stuff from the Russians was called Heart of Texas.
Heart of Texas?
Yeah.
Very clever, the KGB, or the former KGB. Now, basically, when we showed you this dossier 1 year ago,
This is the
when it came
infamous
out.
Trump dossier.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I read it, and we are wondering, quite frankly, if the FBI had all that was in here a year ago when the campaign was going on.
Some of
If
it
they
has,
did,
some
they
of it
should
has
have
been
put it out.
confirmed. Also, there have been reports that the FBI, in fact, was considering paying the former British spy who
the
had
James
compiled
Bond
that,
here that did
putting
that.
him on the payroll.
But no, I mean, you read through this, and I was reading through it last night. I mean, it's all right here, and it's taken us a year. It's taken us a year to figure that Manafort did something.
You know, sometimes things do move slowly.
Particularly when they're very controversial. All right. But anyway, back to White Plains. The Continuum is opening, Jim.
Yes.
Could you tell us about that?
Well, I know that the For the largest apartments, the top rent will be $4,200.
Yes.
I don't recall what the minimum rent was for studios, but I think
That's around
About
2,000.
Yeah,
$2,000
it
to
was-
$2,100.
Yeah.
Here's a picture of that building shot just yesterday.
Now, supposedly, the building itself will be open November 15th. They expect the first tenants to move in then. There is a sales office, a rental office set up on premises. They have put in the landscaping, so the outside, looks very inviting at this point. We have to note that even though it was an LCOR project, the actual construction of the building was handled by Louis Capelli's construction company.
Once again, in a very
now there's supposed to be a second
Swift manner.
building.
Yes.
I don't know where that's sited, though. I tried. I was talking to Dean Bender at Thompson and Bender, and he was going to send me.
It's sort of hard to figure out where it's going to be, but my impression is that it's toward the back of the property where they would put this up. Now they did announce that they do intend to build that second building, beginning in perhaps 2 years. I think 2019.
You got to see how these lease up.
And that's 200 and some odd units.
Yeah, I think I want to say 288 units in this altogether. I mean, if you add up the first 2 buildings that have gone up on Bank Street, and now this one, and the additional, the 4th building, which is proposed, and the one they're talking about starting for 2019, you're looking at about 1,000 apartment units added just in that area.
I think that the current is 200 and something units, and the second one is going to have, I think, 273.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
So
288
They're going to have a
units.
total of 500 units.
Yeah,
on
the
site.
first is was 502, I believe, in the first 2 buildings. And
You're talking about Bank Street Commons.
yeah, I'm talking about
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't
So
know.
when you add up, all those 4 buildings, the development on
Well,
Bank
I was
Street,
wondering if
you're
they were
looking
going to
at
put
1,000 units.
that second building up on the site where they were originally planning a hotel.
That could
That
be.
could be.
That could be. But that's something new, though.
Yeah.
That's news.
But
That's news.
now they also have space for some retail at the new building. Just what that will be, I don't know.
Yeah, depends on how it leases up. Now, 9 organizations, the mayor said, a rally the other day, or was it one of the debates, 9 organizations submitted expressions of interest in developing a city-owned property on the present Metro North Plaza. Let's have some names. How about that? This is good news. Could we have a little transparency on this?
They did get responses to the request for expressions of interest that the city had put out. There were 9 of them. We don't know who. We don't know just what they're interested in doing.
They'll tell us on a need-to-know basis. And White Plains Women's Club hosted the Richmond Community Services Gala last night. Thousands of dollars were raised in a silent auction, and it was a great evening for this very important organization.
Do we have to say something about the Astros winning the World Series?
Well,
or can we forget about that?
It was great for Houston, and autumn is here. This is the last good weekend for foliage. This is what it looked like last week, and that's a T-Town reservation. John Bailey, Peter Katz, Jim Benerofe. Good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.